Hey guys, I'm Kylie and I'm here today with a Photoshop tutorial for you all. Before we begin, I do want to give a disclosure that I personally only use Photoshop for retouching images. I actually do all the editing on my own on Lightroom. So if you guys would be interested in getting a Lightroom tutorial, I would love to give it to you. Just email us or shoot us a DM on Instagram at gurus@bc and let us know if you want that tutorial. So to get started, first, we're going to talk about using Photoshop. So Photoshop can be used for a variety of things other than what I personally use it for. So for example, you can do photo editing, retouching, and website mockups on just Photoshop. When you want to use Photoshop, so you can do it if you want to change the color of a photo, if you want to change the exposure or the contrast levels, or if you need to retouch an image. Retouching typically includes removing blemishes, cropping unwanted subject matter, etc. So what that means is, like, let's say your dog's in the background of a photo, you can actually remove him from it. Today I'm actually going to give you a very quick tutorial of removing blemishes from a shoot that I did this weekend. So this is just a very quick example of what can be done in Photoshop. In image 1 you can see here, and then image 2, if you can see my cursor circling it. In image 2, the greens in the back are actually brighter. The background itself is brighter. There's some more red tones in the face, and the sign itself pops more than it does in image 1. So from this example, you can see that Photoshop is just a great way to up your work a little and make it seem more professional. So we're going to go over about 3 to 4 slides of just tools. Like I said, I personally don't really do anything outside of retouching on Photoshop, but if you want to get a little more complicated, make some posters, some flyers, you can actually use these tools to do it as well. So you have the Move tool, the regular marquee tool, the lasso tool, magic wand, 3D material eyedropper, and the pencil tool. Out of these, I personally only really use the 3D material eyedropper. And I typically use that if I'm trying to cover a blemish, and, like, let's say there's a lot of pores on the area, so it's your nose or your cheeks. I would actually take the 3D material tool and kind of pull the pores from that area and drop it onto where I'm covering the blemish. The lasso, rectangular marquee, and the move tool are kind of what you're going to use if you want to remove unwanted subject matter or if you're trying to make a poster or flyer. So here are the tools that I primarily use. Most importantly, I use the clone stamp tool. Then you also have the eraser tool, the 3D material drop, the horizontal type, the pen tool, and the path selection tool. The clone stamp tool essentially is what I use, and it just lets you take literally the texture, the color, the lighting from one area and drop it directly in another area. There are some caveats to that I'll go over in the actual tutorial. Oop, I skipped one. Okay, so our last one is we have the rectangle, hand, zoom tool. Then we have the foreground and background, quick mask, and change screen. Personally, I don't really use anything in this area, especially in retouching. Lastly, we have the Photoshop control panel. So here we have layers and transparent backgrounds. So if you're trying to get a little more complicated than just removing blemishes, you're probably going to end up with some layers. Your layers are essentially different areas of the photo, and then when you stick it all together, it makes your combined product. So, like, let's say you want to add text. That's going to be an extra layer. If you are combining 2 or 3 different photos, those are also going to be extra layers. So there's a lot going on, and personally, I don't ever really get into this, but if you want a tutorial, we can show you one. So first, I'm going to explain how to do the blemishes, and then I'm going to actually show you with an image I did this weekend. So the first thing you're going to do is import your photo. You're going to select the clone stamp tool. From here, you have to pick a blemish-free area of the skin that's very close to what you're trying to cover. So for example, if you have some acne on your cheek, you're going to want to select an area very close to the nose that has almost similar lighting. Then you're going to stamp the blemish and the area around it as well in order to blend it. So this often works best if you're doing very quick clicks of the mouse pad. And then you're going to repeat this process until the skin is smooth. You might have to move around to different areas depending on who your subject is. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to reshare my Photoshop screen for you. And from there, oops, it's not available real quick. So give me a quick minute to pull up the Photoshop so I can share it again. Here we go. It's my Photoshop. Okay, let's see if this will work. Here we go. Okay, we're gonna share the screen. I believe you can see this. Awesome. Okay, so I already imported this photo, but if you want to import your own, you're going to hit File. Instead of New, you're actually going to hit Open, and you're going to pull a photo from your computer. If you hit New, it's literally going to give you a blank screen and let you make everything from the beginning. So what I always do is I hit the 100%, and I'm going to zoom this into 175 because this image is pretty small. Actually, it looks like I'm going to need to zoom it in more. This is kind of just a guessing process, nothing super specific here. Then I'm going to hit the either clone stamp or the healing brush. Personally, I'm going to do the healing brush right now. I love that it did that randomly. Okay, so we're going to go healing brush. I'm going to select that healing brush tool. That gives you a little more control. And then I'm going to select this brush right here. And since his face is pretty small and the blemishes are pretty small, I'm just going to shrink the brush size to 10. I'm also going to zoom this in a little bit more. Okay, so I did that on purpose, I swear. In order to get a source point when you're using the healing brush tool, you get to pick yourself. So you have to do Option and click to define a source point. You're going to want to change this often depending on what area you're working on. So since the blemish is right here, I'm going to move right up here and make that the source point. And then I'm just going to cover it. Same thing right here. Just cover it. And then also, since as you can see, it got a little bit darker right here when I did that, I'm just going to press around the ends to blend it out. Your source point is where it's getting, is where it's getting the inspiration for the pic from, essentially. Control Z that. Why is it? It's like randomly hitting things. I'm sorry. Anyways, yeah, your source point is where it's randomly getting your base from, is the best way to say it. So you're going to want to make sure that it's very close to what you're actually looking for. This like map keeps clicking randomly. I'm sorry guys, I swear I can do my job. And it's also lagging a little bit because we're using Zoom. But when you're doing this on your photos, you just want to make sure you're hitting whatever you want covered when you're doing this. So like, let's say we're trying to get rid of his freckle here. We're going to source point that there. So that's essentially how you're going to do this. In order to use Photoshop, you do need an Adobe prescription. You do need an Adobe subscription. If you're in any of the digital media classes here, you should be able to just log in and do it. If you aren't, you have to, I believe, get your own Adobe subscription in order to do it. And then one thing that I always recommend is as you're doing this, make sure you're periodically zooming back out to 100 to make sure that their photo doesn't look weird, that you don't have any dark patches or any really light patches, that the lighting is pretty consistent across the head, that you didn't really like bend or morph the skin in when you did that. This was a very, very light job, but if you're doing more intensive work, you definitely want to do it more frequently. So once you're done, you're going to hit File, Save, and you can then email the photo to yourself or just save it directly onto your phone. If you have any questions, please contact gurus@eagles.bridgewater.edu, and we will be happy to answer them. You can ask for me specifically since I gave this tutorial. Again, my name is Kylee, and if you have any further questions, you can also DM us on Instagram and let us know if you want to see a Lightroom tutorial. Have a great day, guys.